Hey everyone in our yoga community. We have a conference this week again is on The Heart of Yoga, which is the book we're reading this semester. And I would like you guys for this week to read chapter 1, which is about the concept of yoga, sort of the meaning of yoga. Chapter 1 is all of 3 pages. 5, 6, and 7. So it's super short, but it's kind of like the idea of the sutras. You know, when we say sutra, it means a small phrase with a big meaning. So this is a very small chapter, very few paragraphs, but it has some really good depth and understanding of our practice in it. So please take the time to read it. So it begins with explaining to us, which I think a lot of folks that do yoga don't understand this. Of course, we know that yoga comes from India, right? It's a traditional practice from India. But what most of us don't know is that it's actually one of 6 fundamental thoughts or philosophies that come from India. And it falls under one of the 6 called darsana. So yoga is under that umbrella. There are 5 different darsanas. Does anyone remember from Sunday what darsana means? I'm going to read it to you because I think the way that Deskachar wrote it's very beautiful. He said, darsana therefore means sight, view, or point of view, or even in certain ways it's a certain way of seeing. But beyond these lies another meaning to understand this. One must conjure an image of a mirror with which we look inside ourselves. I love this interpretation of it because it's such a beautiful way for us to look at our yoga practice, is actually that our yoga is our mirror that we see ourselves through. You know, all this time we spend being quiet on our mats and having this chance to go inward is part of our svadhyaya. It's part of our self-study, how we begin to see ourselves. And where else in our life do we really slow down enough to do our own psychology, right? Our own looking at ourselves. So I was kind of thinking about the teachings this week, and I'm sure all of you have had this experience before where you're doing something and you walk past a mirror and all of a sudden you see yourself and you're like a little bit shocked, like, oh my gosh, I look that way? And either that's like a good thing, right? Or like, whoa, I look kind of good today. Or it's kind of, oh, I didn't know I looked this bad, or I didn't know I looked this way. But it's kind of a fun way to think of, like, we catch ourselves sometimes when we see a mirror to see an image of ourselves and who we are. Oh, I look this way, you know. Oh, there's this thing on my face or whatever. But it's a beautiful way to think of how we must look at ourselves from an internal perspective, like having glimpses of ourselves, and that being sort of the compass for us on our spiritual path of really seeing ourselves and knowing who we are. Then we sort of know where we want to go. We know what we want for ourselves. So I love this philosophy and way for us to give us a new way to think about every time you guys come to your yoga mat. You know, kind of think of that. We talked about last week this being our medicine and our wisdom and our intelligence and how we work on our yoga mats, but also being this mirror for ourselves. Every time we come to our mat, that we have an opportunity to really look here. A couple more things from chapter 1 that I wanted to share with you guys from page 7. So I'm skipping page 6 because we're going to go back to it next week. Deskachar talks a little bit about the books of yoga classes often give us the impression that there's a prerequisite to study yoga. We may be told that we should not smoke, or we should be a vegetarian, or that we should give away all of our worldly goods. So such ways of behaving are admirable only if they originate from within us. And they may as a result of yoga, but not if they are imposed from the outside. For instance, many people who smoke give up the habit once they begin yoga practice. As a result of their practice, they no longer want to smoke. They do not give up smoking in order to practice yoga. We begin where we are and how we are, and whatever happens, happens. And as each one of your yoga teachers, again, passing on from Krishnamacharya to Pattabhi Joyce to Tim Miller to me to you, I have to say that's one of the biggest things that I always want you guys to feel whenever you're in this shala, whenever you're on your mats. I hope you know that the mantra I like to say to you guys is, when you're on your mat, there's no judgment, There's no competition. There's no one to impress. There is nothing to prove. You know, it's this beautiful mantra to say, this mat is like open arms. It's always there for you, and no matter what you ate the night before, no matter what you consumed the night before, no matter what you did, you never come to your mat and feel judged by it. Oh, last night I had a huge pizza. My yoga's gonna judge me. You know, my teacher. It's often funny for me when I'm out in public, sometimes when people see me. You know, you can imagine if you're in the grocery line next to me or whatever, and you've got your little basket, and people are like, oh, you know, what might Diana find in my basket, you know, and be like feel a little bit judged, you know, like what's in there. And the truth of it is, you know, most of the time when I see people, there's a little bit of this yoga teacher Catholic guilt thing that happens, you know. Oh, I haven't been to practice for a few weeks. Oh, I haven't seen you for a month or a year. And I always wondering, it's okay. It's nice to see you. You know, it doesn't matter. And I think if your yoga practice could talk, if your yoga mat could talk, it would say to you the same thing. It's always nice to see you. It's okay. So, I think that's something that we constantly need to remind ourselves, because we are so critical of ourselves. And I run into people all the time, you know, when you're at a party or something, someone says, oh, what do you do for a living? And I say, I'm a yoga teacher. Of course, everyone's a yoga teacher now. But one of the things that you get from people that have never done yoga or don't practice, they say, oh, I could never do yoga. And then I hear this long list of, I'm too tired, I eat too many cheeseburgers, or, you know, whatever their reason is. And again, you know, for me, and all of you know this too, like, we always begin where we are, and that is always the perfect place. And it's never, you want to say to people, listen, there is no flexibility prerequisite to do yoga. Hopefully the idea is you come here and you move in that direction, you know. And like Deskachar said, the yoga practice has a way of making impressions on you or shifting us in ways that, yeah, you know, once I start to fall in love with this practice and do it more and more, I kind of don't necessarily want to eat a large pizza before I practice that next morning, or you know. So it does have that way of sort of changing our habits a little bit and what we consume and when we go to bed at night and whatnot. But there's no prerequisite for any of that. And again, no matter what we do, it's always there for us, you know. My dearest friend, Shelley Washington, always said that her yoga mat is like her mother, and that her mother's always loving and welcoming to her, no matter what she did or what was ever. So I was like, honey, that's great, and I love you. And every time she would tell this story, I would get kind of tearful. But it's a beautiful story to think of our mom like our yoga mat like our mom. You know, that she just loves you, you know, you just come for it. Lastly, I want to read a little bit more to you guys, and let's see where I'm going to pick up on this one. Let's start here. The more we progress, the more we become aware of the holistic nature of our being, realizing that we are made of body, breath, mind, and more. Many people who start studying yoga by practicing asana continue to learn more poses until the only meaning of yoga for them lies in the physical exercise. We can liken this to a man who strengthens only one arm and lets the other one become weak. It goes on, actually. I like that whole paragraph, but I love that analogy, because how silly would that be, right? If we were like going to the gym and like really working out our right arm and working it out and just not doing anything with the left. And yoga is basically like that for us. It's the one thing that we do that brings the mind and the body together, and one without the other is incomplete. If I were to teach you guys all of the poses of primary series and you completely mastered them and you were so proficient in them, but you came here and you judged yourself and you were a stress monkey and you left here and cursed at everyone on your way home in the car, we would say, what would Guruji say? Some problem, right? Or T.S. Eliot, we had the experience and missed the meaning. So it's a beautiful way, again, for us to think about what we come to our yoga mats for. You know, it's our good medicine, not just to keep our bodies strong and healthy, but it's our good medicine for our spirit. And it never judges us. It's always here with open arms. Namaste.